Hello. So for this video, we're going to be working through some of the practice problems that have been assigned. So the first basic thing we'll review here, though, is the midpoint formula, right? This is what we're going to use to determine what we consider to be elasticity. So one of the first problems you'll see in the practice set is talking about an entrepreneur selling a product, right? And so this entrepreneur has a product in which he has various price and quantity at two different price points. Right, so the price point 1, which is $1.75, he sells 100. And at price point 2, which is $1.25, he sells 300. And it's asking you to determine what the elasticity of demand is. The formula for elasticity of demand looks like this. It's Q2 minus Q1 divided by Q2 plus Q1 divided by 2. And all that is divided by just the opposite when we're doing price, P2 minus P1 divided by P2 plus P1 divided by 2. So let's actually plug in some of these numbers. So for Q2, right, we have 300. So effectively this will be 300 minus 100 divided by 300 plus 100 divided by 2. All that is divided by our price point then. P2, which is $1.25, minus P1, which is $1.75, divided by our P2, $1.25, plus $1.75, divided by 2. We can then calculate some of these numbers out to be 300 minus 100 is 200. 300 plus 100 is 400 divided by 2 is 200. $1.25 minus $1.75 is negative 0.5. $1.25 plus $1.75 is $3 divided by 2 is $1.50. So then, bringing this down here, right, 200 divided by 200 is 1. And then we're saying here, negative 0.5 divided by 1.5 is equal to 0.3 repeating. Negative 0.3 repeating. Well, 1 divided by negative 0.3 repeating is just equal to negative 3. Because we're asking about the elasticity of demand, and we know demand is a negative sloping line, we can just not worry about the negative 3. We can actually take the absolute value of negative 3, which is just 3. Therefore, we say the elasticity of demand is 3. Now, the next question it's going to ask you is demand elastic or inelastic over this price range? Well, the total revenue rule implies demand is elastic when revenue and price move in opposite directions. So in other words, a decrease in price results in an increase in total revenue. Demand is inelastic when revenue and price move in the same direction. In other words, a decrease in price results in a decrease in total revenue. Total revenue at a price of $1.75 and a quantity of 100, right? So the total revenue here, price point at 1, right, is $175. Now, price point 2, the total revenue, okay, because we're taking $1.25 times 300, total revenue is actually $375. So we know from the rule, okay, which says that demand is elastic, okay, when revenue and price move in opposite directions. So here, revenue increased as price decreased. So demand is elastic. And then the last part of the question is asking if demand had the same elasticity for price decline from $1.25 to 75 cents as it does from $1.75 to $1.25. Would $1.25 to 75 cents increase or decrease Danny's total revenue? Well, if it's the same as went from 1 to 2 here, we can assume if we have some point 3 here, right, and we're going to 75 cents, this number would still increase. The second practice question is asking you about the specific formula for measuring the price elasticity of supply. Okay, before we can say what price elasticity of supply is, right? So price elasticity of supply is simply, again, Q2 minus Q1 divided by Q2 plus Q1 divided by 2. Divided by P2 minus P1 divided by P2 plus P1 divided by 2. So in other words, what we're saying here is that the percentage change in quantity supplied, okay, how much did the quantity supplied change by percentage compared to how much did the price change by percentage? Okay, so it's the percentage change in quantity supplied divided by percentage change in price. And then if we're talking about elasticity of demand, it'd be the quantity demanded versus percentage change in price. And then the second one is also going to be another example, which we can use this for. Okay, so they're saying for some instance we have P1 price and quantity for 2 different scenarios. Okay, so for the first instance, we go from price of $22 to $25, and saying we're going from 1,500 boxes down to 1,000 boxes. What's price elasticity? Okay, so let's use this previous equation. Okay, so we have Q2 minus Q1. So 1,000 minus 1,500, so it's minus 500. Q2 plus Q1, 1,000 plus 1,500 divided by 2. Well, that's going to be 2,500. Half of that is going to be 1,250. P2 minus P1. Well, that's going to be the difference here. 25 minus 22, which is equal to 3. All right, and that's going to be divided by P2 plus P1, which is 25 plus 22, which is 47, divided by 2, which is equal to 23.5. So then, taking this, the next step, we have to divide 500 divided by 1250, which is equal to 0.4, negative 0.4. And then we have to divide 3 by 23.5, which is 0.1277. Then we take 0.4 divided by 0.1277, we get a negative 3.13. Again, because we're not worrying about plus or minus sign, all we want is the absolute value of it. The actual then final answer is going to be 3.13 for the elasticity. In this case, it's going to ask you, is supply elastic or inelastic? And so supply will be elastic if greater than 1, inelastic if less than 1, and unit elastic if elasticity equals 1. Thus, in this case, since the number is greater than 1, we can say supply is elastic. The next problem is going to give you a demand schedule. Okay, so we'll have some demand schedule which says we have some price and some quantity. And so we'll say at 40, we offer get 10. At 35 is 15. At 30 is 20. 25 is 25. And 20 is 30. So it's going to ask you what the price elasticity of demand is between each of the following prices. Okay, between 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So if we look at between 40 and 35, right, using again our midpoint formula, so very briefly we're going to say Q2 minus Q1. Well, Q2 here is 15 minus Q1 is 10, so we have 5, okay, divided by Q2 plus Q1 divided by 2. So 15 plus 10 is 25 divided by 2 is 12.5. That's divided by Q2 minus Q1, which in this case is negative 5. I'm just going to write 5 because we're not worrying about the negative signs. And then Q2 plus Q1 divided by 3, or divided by 2. In this case, we're going to be taking 40 plus 35, which is 75, divided by 2, which is 37.5. So then we have 5 divided by 12.5, which is equal to 0.4. And then we're going to be taking 5 divided by 37.5, which is equal to 0.133. And then if you take 0.4 divided by 0.133 repeating, we will get an answer very close to 3. So between 1 and 2, we have an elasticity demand of 3. And this is actually the same thing for all these various numbers here. And then eventually, say we come down here to between 4 and 5. So between 4 and 5. So we can again use our midpoint formula. So we say Q2 minus Q1. Q2 30 minus 25 is 5. And then we take our Q2 plus Q1 divided by 2, which is 30 plus 25 equals 55. Divided by 2 is equal to 27.5. And all that is going to be over our price. So P1 or P2 minus P1. All right, so we're going to say 20 minus 25. Again, the change is negative 5, but I'm only worrying about the positive number here, which is 5. And then we take 20 plus 25, which is 45 divided by 2, which is equal to 22.5. 22.5. Well, 5 divided by 27.5 is equal to 0.18 repeating. And 5 divided by 22.5 is equal to 0.2 repeating. Well, we can then say, well, 0.18181818 divided by 0.2 repeating, you can get a number close to 0.82. Alright, notice most of these questions will ask you to round decimal places to the 2 decimal places, so 2 decimal places.